All right, so we are back with part two, finishing up our review of Dreamcatcher's Apocalypse. Follow us, Gio. Continue on with what you were saying about because Gio was finishing up in the first episode, first part. If you didn't listen to that, he was just finishing up his discussion about Dreamcatcher moving away from their rock sound.
Yeah, I was just saying how it kind of feels for like the diehard fans is the rock sound from Dreamcatcher. It's kind of like the betrayal when we get stuff like this. Because we're expecting something, and when they don't deliver, we're just kind of left with that, with those feelings of distaste, I guess. But what else? I completely lost my train of thought. But yeah, I just kind of hope that Dreamcatcher in their next release, hopefully that's in the next 6 months, the sooner the better, that they come back with their iconic rock sound or metal, whatever they want to do, as long as it's that hard hitting stuff that we're used to, and they kind of like reignite the fire that's slowly burning out. But yeah,
I definitely feel you because I don't know. There's just a thing where it's like, I don't know. It's definitely kind of like using sort of what you were saying earlier in part one. It definitely feels. It's definitely a situation where you feel like you're stuck between a rock and a hard place when it comes to, when it comes to supporting artists and things like this happen. Because you're like, you obviously want to see them expand and evolve and grow as an artist, but like there's ways to do it while still maintaining what made you as an artist unique in a way,
mm-hmm.
Like personally, I've seen a ton of artists where it's like I've seen them move away from their sound, and I've been in both situations where I'm happy with the direction they've moved in, and I'm not happy in a way, to real quickly, give examples. Linkin Park is one of my favorite bands of all time, and yet I've never liked a full album from them. Like the last full album I liked from them was their second album. Every album afterwards, they sort of expanded and evolved their sound and they've always been a band that's tested genres and mixed genres well. And every album since their second one, it's always been like I found songs on there that I've liked, that I felt, were good, that pertain to sort of my taste, but I've never liked a full album from theirs after their second one because I just felt they moved too far away from what I loved most about them. I obviously still found songs on individual songs off each album afterwards that I enjoyed, but it was just something that it was tough, where it was the albums released after just never scratched the itch that the first two albums successfully did. Whereas a band like Paramore, to me, they completely did a 180 on their sound after their first three albums. But the albums, what I loved was, what made it different was each album just sounded completely different from one another in a good way, where it wasn't like they took this drastic 180 spin and out of nowhere they were doing music that just I just didn't like, but they took this approach where they made each and every one sound different in a way that still kept a lot of the fans enjoying the music, because they still kept the creative edge that people loved from them. And so similarly here, I think this is more in the situation I'm describing of Linkin Park, where it's just you get so used to them having a sound, and you're just kind of upset that you feel upset, and like how you were saying, you just feel upset and kind of betrayed that they're moving away from the sound, and they're doing it in a way that still isn't maintaining their roots in a way.
Yeah. And as you said something that kind of reminded me of something I wanted to mention. A lot of people have been saying, or there's a general consensus that the last trilogy, the Dystopia one, is peak Dreamcatcher. and you would expect them from ending with like Road to Utopia with Audai, which some consider the best Dreamcatcher track we've ever gotten. Going from that level of, I guess, commitment to their colors, and then doing like a full 180 for the next project, which is kind of understandable because you don't want to do more of the same, and you want to be like, okay, we did this, now let's try this. But at the same time, there should be a level of like an equalness to it.
Yeah,
like you give fans what they desire and what they're used to and what they expect from you, but you also have other tracks that kind of fulfill like the curiosity of fans. Like, oh, what if Dreamcatcher did this kind of song? I wonder what that would sound like. And they've done that before in like their previous albums and EPs, where it's kind of like the majority is rock, but then they have like one or two songs that are like either a ballad or just softer in tone that kind of satisfy that curiosity of some fans. But overall, they were still majority rock. But now they're kind of like doing the opposite, which is the majority soft side and just a few rock. And it's just, what are you guys doing?
Yeah, and so real quickly, transitioning that into the next song. The next song after Fairy Tale is Some Love. And I don't know what your thoughts are. I'm really trying to figure out, with our discussion, from previous right now, I'm trying to figure out where does this track fall into, because there's some aspects that make it sound, like a Dreamcatcher track, but a majority of the song to me also kind of just feels like, again, kind of how we were saying with Fairy Tale, it definitely feels like a lot of what we've heard from K-pop at the same time. So, like, this is one where I'm really struggling to really figure out where do I want to categorize it in the discussion we're having right now, where, like, does it pertain to aspects and colors and roots of Dreamcatcher, or does it really just stray from what we're used to,
This song reminds me of Dami's solo from their last album. I think it was punk rock. So it's like a subgenre of rock. So technically speaking, they're still doing rock, but it's not the rock that we want. And it's just like something, the sound of this song just makes me uncomfortable to listen to, because I've heard so many other songs with this sound, and it doesn't, like, they're not doing it any differently. It's like, this is not what I want as a fan and consumer, and this is not what I want. But that's just the biased opinion.
Yeah,
like experts or like music people who know music, if they were to analyze the song, they would probably find something to appreciate in it. But me, as just like a simple-minded, I don't like this, I like this fan, this is just a miss for me.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, because I don't want people taking this the wrong way, but like, if you were to have just blindly played me this album, other than maybe Vision, just because it was like the title track, obviously, I would not have listened to basically any of these songs and then go, yeah, that's Dreamcatcher.
Definitely did. I mean, maybe the next song, because it's a ballad and they've done ballads before, it's kind of like acceptable, because they need to have some kind of diversity in the discography. But just like the other songs, bro, this is not Dreamcatcher. I guess this is like the overall point of this podcast, and the last one is kind of like there's a kind of like disappointment coming from, what was I gonna say? I don't know, just not getting Dreamcatcher songs from Dreamcatcher.
Yeah, and more so, what makes it even more, I guess I want to say frustrating, but also like annoying, is we're coming off of the first part of this trilogy, which you and I didn't like as much either, Like, when I first listened to it, I liked it, but as I got more into Dreamcatcher and then gave the album re-listens, I was like, yeah, I probably liked it off the first listen because I didn't know too much about Dreamcatcher, but after listening to more of the stuff you showed me, this doesn't really hold up as well,
Yeah, and it's a very like frustrating thing to deal with as a fan, because when the last one came out, when Save Us came out, or we kind of still had that what's the word? We still had like our expectation and kind of that. What's the word I'm looking for?
Hope? No, not hope.
Faith, I guess, or hope that that the next part would be better. But now we went through Save Us, and now we're on to Follow Us, and it's the same issues again. And then at this point, it's kind of like, what is part 3 going to be the same? Are we going to go with like a year and a half of content that we don't like from? In my case, one of my favorite K-pop, like Dreamcatcher is top 2 for me. It's Twice and then Dreamcatcher. Those are the only 2 groups I have left on my list because I've fallen out of love for everybody else. So it's going to be a year and a half of just maybe 3 songs that I like from what they're releasing. And it's just, dude, it's very frustrating.
Yeah, I was hoping for like some sort of redemption arc with this one. And I've been very vocal about it lately. I saw 6 songs, and even though 2 of them are outros, I saw like a 6-song album and I was like, hey, they can really condense it down, really just make it full of bangers, no filler, and it's just let me down even more.
Yeah, I feel like I'm definitely not a fan of EPs now. I like that full album. I guess mini albums are okay, but I just really want groups to release more albums, because this thing is 16 minutes long. What can you do with 16 minutes worth of music? That's over in the blink of an eye.
Yeah,
can't do much with it, and just that plus not liking 3 out of the 6 songs, you're kind of screwed. That cuts the EP in half, and it's just you're left with. I'm trying to do math. 8. You're left with 8 minutes of content, and you waited 8 months for it. That's insane.
Yeah. And like the annoying part to me is that the music world can't find a middle ground. It's either you get EPs or mini albums that either aren't good and you waited all that time for them, or they're good, you waited all that time for them, it was good, but you're left wanting more, like Twice's release, where both of us were like, we want to hear more after this album, Or we get the other side where it's oversaturated. It's like 20 tracks, full album, and it's like there's I'm telling you, there's a middle ground where it's like somewhere between 7 and like 12, maybe even 13, 14. But to me, that's kind of even pushing. But like, there's like a sweet spot where it's between like 7 and 12 tracks where you can get a really good album out of it with no filler and just, hit after hit. But they're kind of struggling to find this. And like you said, it's a 16-minute EP basically, and you're just left completely unsatisfied because it's not what you wanted, and there's not even more of it to maybe solidify that, okay, maybe there's some saving grace to it,
Yeah. I agree. Between 7 to 10, 12 tracks is like the golden spot for particularly when it comes to K-pop. Because if you get because I know there's like a group or maybe like a solo artist that released an album that had like 20 plus songs in it, and I was like, there's no way all of that is going to be good, because it's K-pop. There's just like not. It's kind of mean to say, but not. K-pop kind of has like its boiling point, I guess you could say, and like once you reach that, everything else is just going to be. It's not going to sound good to you because you're just sick of hearing like the same artist. But then it might be different from person to person, because some people could sit through 20 plus albums because they're incredibly in love with the artist and they have this weird obsession with them.
Hey, Lil Baby just dropped a 24-song album, and I saw a ton of people talking about it, and I was like, I'll maybe give the album a shot because I'm always looking for new music, but I find it such a struggle to sit through albums like that where it's 20 plus songs and it's like an hour long, and you really start to struggle to differentiate song by song, you know?
Yeah. Like albums like that are useful when you just want to put something on and not have to keep changing. Because there's Twice with Formula of Love. It has 16 songs. 16 is not 20, but it's just enough to have, I guess.
It's past that sweet spot, like we said.
Yeah, it's just past it. It's enough. Like you could listen to this without a problem. But once you start getting like 20, 24, it's just like it's not really an album anymore. You're listening to an entire library.
Yeah.
So
definitely. But real quickly to really wrap things up, finishing off with the final two songs. Rainy Day, I believe this one is called, right?
yeah,
So this was the one. What do you think about this one, Ju? It was definitely again another song that took a softer approach, you know.
yeah, it's a. I don't know if this is gonna sound mean, but it's your typical Dreamcatcher ballad, and as far as in my opinion, I guess Dreamcatcher and doesn't have the strongest ballad game. They just kind of. I'm gonna hate. I'm going to get some hate if Insomnia's actually bother to listen to this, or they just skip to this part of me hating on the ballads. We have to admit, Dreamcatcher doesn't have the strongest ballads. They don't even have good ballads. Maybe the only ballad that I really enjoyed from Dreamcatcher was the one that Gyu wrote during the Boca album. What was it called? I don't remember what it was called. But that's the only one I like. Everything else is kind of like it's just the Dreamcatcher ballad that they tried their best, but it just doesn't sound good. So it's decent in my opinion.
It's passable, but it's not something that I would really throw on, you know.
Yeah, I mean the ballads that I really do like. I don't know about you. It's like the ones that kind of like start off slow, but then as the song goes on, it builds up like momentum, intensity leading up to that jaw dropping high note from the artist, and then it kind of goes back down, and then it goes slow again. I like ballads that have momentum, that have like I guess like a story arc to them, that you could feel what you're listening to very clearly. And I really dislike ballads that are just slow from start to finish, and maybe just like at one point it's a high note, but the high note just doesn't fit the song. They just did it to include a high note. It's just ballads are I'm very picky when it comes to ballads.
Yeah, and though I can appreciate slow songs and all that, my biggest issue with them is always that when they choose such a slow tempo to go at, it ends up making the song situational in a way, you know? Where it's like, with this song, for example, I'm not throwing this song on when I'm like, you know, I really, I can't even think of a situation I would end up throwing this on, because I'm, like, again, it makes it very situational. Like, if I'm driving just casually around, I'm not playing this song because it's too slow in a sense that, like, it just wouldn't elicit any sort of reaction, I guess you could say, you know? Mm-hmm. Like, when you're driving a car, there's definitely situations where you play a slow song, but the main point I'm trying to make, you know, because I don't want to keep ranting on, but the main point I'm trying to make is that, like, slow songs, especially ones like this, it's like, it's so situational that, like, you're just, like, you can't just throw it on casually when you're listening to a playlist, you know, and when you're going to go do something, it's like, I don't know, it makes it situational in a way where you're like, it's very, like, specific in a way of, like, when you're going to bother to throw the song on.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Just to give an example of what, you know, the ballad I was talking about, or like the ballad structure, is B as One from Twice. Either the Japanese or the Korean version, it's both of them are amazing in my opinion. It's one of my favorite ballads, if not my favorite one, because I just really love how it goes from Jiyu's high note straight into Mina's soft voice, and it just takes you to heaven, dude. It's incredible. But to end it, well, not to end it because there's still the outro, Mother Nature, and apparently this has some significance to the story. It basically means how after at the end of Vision, they send out that message, people get aware, and I don't remember how exactly it happens, but apparently after they did that, they decided to just leave Earth alone and let Mother Nature kind of do its thing and, kind of reset Earth to its original state of it just being mostly, grassy plains, greenery, trees, birds, and stuff. But apparently, it's relevant to the lore.
Interesting. I mean, it's a nice little outro, nice and peaceful, but I don't know. Again, kind of like the intro, it just doesn't stand out too much in a way.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I kind of feel about the outro. Just to real quickly give my thoughts. I don't know. I just didn't feel the most interested by it.
Yeah, and in comparison to the other outros, this can't even This can't hold a candle to them at all. It's just not. It's not up to their standards, like we've been saying with the rest of the songs.
Yeah, kind of I don't want to be too mean, but it's kind of a disappointing release to to really finish it off. And I don't know, this entire time I've been thinking while I listened to the album and while even recording these 2 episodes, I've been trying to think, what rating do I want to even give this release,
Mm-hmm. It's what rating to give it, and it's mostly do I even have a reason to come back to this EP? And this is going to be, what's his name? Anthony Fontana?
Oh, yeah.
This is going to be one of those moments when we just give it, it's fair. In our opinion, it's fair because it's what we think. So to me, this is a 3 out of 10. Because it's just, there's so many disappointing factors that goes into that 3, and I don't know, to be fair, 3 is being fair, or being nice.
Hey, you're being generous. I was ready to give it anywhere between a 1 and a 2.
Yeah, the 3 is being generous, because...
Yeah, I'm not holding back, to put it simply, I have no dog in this fight. I just know what I've known from Dreamcatcher. I don't really, as mean as it sounds to our listeners, I don't really care too much about what others have to say. Obviously, everyone's entitled to their own opinion. If you like this album, good for you in a sense. I'm glad you found a way to enjoy this album in a way that I couldn't. But me personally, especially when it comes to music, I'm always willing to hear people's opinions. But at the end of the day, if I don't like something, I'm not going to convince myself to like it just because other people did. So in a sense, I have no dog in this fight. I don't interact with the K-pop community. I just listen to the music. I'm being, like I told you, 3 is generous. I genuinely, I'll go right in the middle. I'll give it a 1.5 to, give you a solid number between 1 and 2. I'm going straight for 1.5. Just very disappointed with Dreamcatcher on this release. But
honestly, I've been thinking 3 is I think, a little bit too generous. I'm gonna change mine to a 2, because 2 being an even number, it doesn't fit anything. But I just feel personally, I feel better giving it a 2 than a 3. Because a 3, that's just biased opinion because I like Dreamcatcher. A 2, in my opinion, is more fair than 3. And to the listeners, which is maybe 3 people, do with that information however you like.
Yeah, if anybody from Geo's server does pop in and gives a full listen to these 2 episodes, because Geo's server, though it is a discussion for all K-pop, it's mainly a Dreamcatcher one, right?
Yeah.
I just want to say to you all, I hope you all at least kind of understand where we're coming from, because we just gave you 2 episodes kind of fully explaining when we easily could have just in 1 episode fully just said, didn't like it, here's the rating, bye. You know, like an easy cop out.
Yeah.
But it isn't a thing of like, you know, how we kind of said in that one K-pop episode, it isn't a thing of just blindly hating. It's like, we have our reasons not to like this. And sure, to some people it might seem petty to just be like, oh, we didn't like it because it wasn't what we're used to from the artist. But that's a valid criticism, you know, to not mess with something because you just liked the way a certain artist was, in a sense, you know. But
yeah, and there's many fans out there that really enjoy this, because there was a guy in my server that said that this was Dreamcatcher's best produced EP. And when I read that, I couldn't stop smelling the copium, to be honest.
I just had the most shocked expression on my face when I heard you say that.
Yeah, it's like, really, dude? You've been a fan for that many years and you're saying that this is the best they've come out with? Jesus Christ, dude.
Yeah, I don't know about that one, man. But to close off, I've been Jack, joined by my fellow co-host,
Dreamcatcher's #1 fan, Giovanni.
Thank you all for joining for this episode of Culture Study, and as always, we'll catch y'all in the next one. Take care.
Peace.